All right, folks, welcome to another night of ranking records. It's the time of the month again where I get together with my pals Martin and Pete, and we rank our favorite records from a specific band. And tonight we're talking Queen, so it's an all Queen show. And yeah, so thanks to everybody for tuning in. And let me bring in my guests. We have Pete Pardo from Sea of Tranquility. Hey, Pete, how are you, bud?
What's up, Pack?
And we have Mr. Martin Popoff. How are you, sir?
Doing okay. How you guys doing, guys?
Doing good, man. We're doing good. Let me just say hello to a few people that popped in here before we get going. Welcome, Louis, new to the channel. Thanks for being here. Mitch Heyman is with us. Lars Guitars, Vagabond, and too many ones and nines. How are you? Rick Hafner, Guitar Man 45, Tyler Patterson, Papa Blue. There's Quentin. Welcome, everybody. So, so we're talking some Queen tonight. You know, in going back and listening to their catalog, I mean, you kind of already knew this about Queen. You don't even really, you don't even really want to call them a rock band, you know, because they every one of their records, and for somebody like myself who loves a variety of material, you know, I've got my Spotify list with 3,600 songs on it, and it's all on shuffle, and I got everything there from like, you know, jazz to like heavy metal. When you're listening to a Queen album, man, you're getting all these different flavors, you know, all these different styles and diversity. Like you don't ever get that, you know, it's one rock song after another. And they're not predictable. Well, I mean, if you've heard them before, they are predictable. But initially, they're all like, "Wow, man! Oh, they do this. Oh, they do this. Oh, they do that." You know, it's incredible, man. They're so diverse in what they do. You know, so I usually start these shows by going around and asking everybody sort of what their first exposure to the band was, and so I'll start with Pete. So, Pete, when did you first hear about Queen? When did you start getting into Queen?
Well, I mean, you know, they were obviously being played on the radio early, you know, around the mid '70s. So I remember hearing, you know, "You're My Best Friend" and then Bohemian Rhapsody. But it wasn't until like maybe a year or two later, I had cousins who lived on Long Island here in New York that we used to go, you know, spend a lot of time with them. And they were they were about a year or two older than me. So they were really starting to get into rock music, you know, right around the time where I started listening to Kiss, but I was still just listening to Kiss. And I remember specifically going over there one weekend, and they had the News of the World album, and they had jazz. And I remember, you know, thinking that cover of News of the World was pretty cool, listening to it. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's got that "We Will Rock You" song on there. I like that. And then I remember like opening up the jazz album, and there was the poster with all the naked ladies on the bikes. And I was thinking, woo, you know, because of course I was a young teenager at the time and thinking that's pretty cool and really liking the music. And that just kind of got me into the band, although I really didn't start like buying any of their stuff till a couple of years later, but I was actively interested. And I think kind of like what you said before, what I really liked about them is that, you know, I was into hard rock and music at the time and would get into heavier music shortly thereafter. But I love the heavy stuff. I love the vocals. I like the theatricality and the artsiness of it. Even though, you know, back then what I was listening to was fairly rudimentary, but I think Queen really helped shape my desire to listen to bands that wanted to experiment and do things in a more creative way, which I really, really latched onto music like that, like a decade later or more. So I think for me, Queen was just a good introduction to, you know, being open-minded to like different type of stuff.
Yeah, oh, definitely. What about yourself, Martin?
It's funny you ask this because this is something I've never been asked before, and I have a funny answer to this because thinking back, I remember, so at the time when we were crazy about music, there was really only the two of us, myself and my buddy Forrest Toop. And I remember He came back from a family vacation with 10 albums. And we thought, all the friends thought, 10 albums, you're kind of spoiled. You're kind of breaking the rule. No one's supposed to be able to buy 10 albums at the same time on a vacation. So he came back with all these albums, and we were kind of jealous, right? That, you're not supposed to be able to get 10 albums. And I'm pretty sure Queen 1 was in that. So 1973, I'm pretty sure Queen 1 was in that. There was a Sabbath. There was Mott the Hoople live, I think. So there's a variety of things in there. So yeah, oddly enough, like I say, I've never really thought about it, but fact of the matter is, and I think it was his brother, Mark Toop, who was a couple years older and a guitarist. He was like a rock star god to us a little bit. Right. But he, I think he bought Queen 2 as a new release. And then another buddy, Murray Beamish, I think was the first one we remember having a night at the opera. So yeah, I guess I've been with Queen since the debut, oddly enough.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I have a story similar to Pete. We went to visit friends of my parents, and they had their son was a few years older than me. Like, he was like, I think 15 or 16, and I think I might have been, I don't know, 12 or something. And he goes, you like music? I'm like, yeah. And I like Pete. I was a Kiss fanatic even at that age. And he's, yeah, you ever heard of this band Queen? I'm like, no. And he shows me the record. It was jazz. He shows me the record, the Queen jazz record. I'm like, well, that's kind of a boring cover. Kiss has got all these amazing. They're standing on burned cities and stuff, and it's like, But then he started playing me the record, and it's like, man, there's some really good rock and stuff on this. And then he's like, okay, don't tell my parents. And he shows me the poster. Shh, don't tell them I have this, right? But yeah, that was my first introduction to Queen, was Queen Jazz. And I mean, yeah. So yeah, interesting. Everybody's got their different experiences in finding out about Queen. So what we're going to do is we're going to count down our top 5 records. And yeah, so we'll start with, I guess we'll go Pete, and then we'll go Martin, and we'll just kind of go around like that. So what's your number 5, Pete?
All right, so Hack and I were talking off air before we came on about how this was fairly easy to me. I think, my top 5 Queen albums hasn't really changed all that much for quite a long time. Excuse me. Although, 1 or 2 may kind of pop in and out of my top 5, and maybe the order might change a little bit. So this was fairly easy to put together. But my number 5, we were just talking about it, is jazz. Wow. And, I talked to some Queen fans who aren't nuts about this album or think it's like kind of like a mediocre album. I always really liked it a lot because I think there's some really heavy stuff on here. There's some really entertaining, more artsy stuff on here. I mean, Fat Bottom Girls is the big hit on here. I always thought Mustafa was pretty cool, right? It's kind of different. Bicycle Race is fun. If You Can't Beat 'Em is a great anthem. Let Me Entertain You is really heavy. Dead on Time is really heavy. You got the kind of fun stuff like Dreamer's Ball and Fun It, and Don't Stop Me Now, of course, is a great, great song. And I like more of jazz as well. I think it's got a little bit of everything. It may not be the landmark albums that the few that came before it are, but I think, to me, this was their last truly, truly great album. And they've had some really good ones after it, but I think for me, the last one where I can say I love almost everything on that album is this one right here. So I dig it a lot. I think it's underrated. Jazz for me.
Cool. All right, Martin, what's your number 5?
Well, I found this actually pretty hard to do because I don't think I've ever ranked Queen albums or really thought about it very much. So I had this battle with the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. And the angel's like saying, be sober about it. Use your head. Think about it. What are the most action-packed and smartest and coolest and most creative? And the devil's saying, go with your heart. Pick the ones that you just know in your heart you really like, and they might not be as like fuss potty as the other ones, but so I've got a kind of a mix of those. So the first one I'm going with is this album here, Blind Guardian. There, A Night at the Opera. They did A Night at the Opera as well, and so I went with A Night at the Opera. I really like this album a lot, and this was really fighting it out for this last spot with A Day at the Races as well, but I look at the sort of like 1920s dance hall sort of stuff on here. There is Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon. It's short, it's only a minute, but Seaside Rendezvous and Good Company. You got all of those in there. God Save the Queen, I guess, is not nothing super special, but I think Death on Two Legs, The Prophet Song, and Bohemian Rhapsody, which arguably greatest Queen song of all time. That's all on here, and the rest of it's okay. I don't go crazy over the top for I'm in Love with My Car. Never kind of really did. Sweet Lady's pretty cool too. So maybe this is supposed to be higher. It's a lot of people's favorite, or commercially, I suppose it's one of the big ones. But I'm just finding it's got just a few little valleys that aren't totally my favorite. And I had a really hard time between 5, 6, and 7. So this just very closely bumped off a couple. So there you go.
Yeah, we'll do some notable mentions because I have one like that as well that was kind of neck and neck there. But yeah, my number 5 is News of the World.
Okay.
Killer opener, man. Like, I mean, that's what a way to start a record. We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions. You've heard it a million times. You've especially sporting events and stuff. The We Are the Champions, but that's got to be one of the greatest sort of rock anthems of all time, right there. And just really really cool. And then All Dead, All Dead. I'm not going to mention all the songs on here, just the ones that highlights for me. All Dead, All Dead. Love that song. Very Beatle like tune. You could tell already kind of where they were going with stuff like Get Down, Make Love. That's already kind of we're going to be doing a little bit of this dance club kind of stuff later on. That's sort of a glimpse into the future. This I think is their only, I would say, real blues song on this record, which is Sleeping on the Sidewalk. That's like their most traditional sounding blues song I think they have on any of their records. But it's got some great. Who Needs You is like the perfect pop song. That is just a fantastic pop song. And one thing too, when you're listening to Queen, it's like Brian May has got like an infinite number of tools at his disposal, like just all these abilities that he just kind of pulls out. Who would have known he could play some amazing Spanish guitar? Like, holy shit, is that impressive, man? I'm like, man, this guy. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows he's a phenomenal guitar player, but man, he in multiple styles. Like, just I didn't see that one coming. It's late for me. That song that's like a hidden treasure. It never got radio play. It is catchy as all hell. It's got a fantastic riff to it. That is just a awesome rock tune. It's Late is, that's probably one of my favorite Queen tunes is on that record, and that's a song that never got airplay. But you put all that together. I mean, that it's got some really good moments. I'm not going to say the whole album in its entirety is good, and then the songs I didn't mention for a reason. But there's enough on there that it made my number 5. So that's News of the World for me, number 5.
Nice.
Yeah, I think Brian May, at the end of the day, is going to go down in history as one of the most unique and versatile guitar players we've ever had.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just his bag of tricks, it seems bottomless. Yeah. It's amazing what that guy pulls out, man. Yeah. I never saw that coming, but damn, it's good. I mean, and then all the, the ragtimey stuff and all the playing he does there, like, oh my God, the guy is just, phenomenal guitar player.
I agree.
Preaching to the choir here, but yeah. All right, what do you got for number 4, Pete?
All right, number 4. And I think Martin and I both promised not to talk about Led Zeppelin today.
Okay.
FLT fans know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, got in a lot of trouble with that. Queen and Led Zeppelin together. Not a good combination.
Uh-oh.
It was all fun. My number 4. This one has probably moved up and down quite a bit in my top 5 for the last couple of years. Today, I have it at number 4. Next week, it could be back to number 3 or even number 2. I'm going to go with Queen 2. which is a phenomenal record. And, the one album, I think, in the early part of the catalog that really doesn't have any obvious hits on it. But that's what's so great about it. But it's dark, it's heavy, it's kind of, some people call it their prog rock album, so to speak. Father to Son is killer. White Queen is gorgeous. Ogre Battle is crushingly heavy.
Yeah.
Perhaps my favorite Queen song of all time, March of the Black Queen, is on here. I love that song. Seven Seas of Rye, amazing. Someday, One Day, there's some cool little ballady things on here. Again, it's got everything that made Queen so great. Starting to see the studio trickery come into play here. There's a lot of cool little effects and things being used. And man, Freddie just rules on this album. Freddie was such a special guy.
Oh, man.
And that cover is just great, too. So, Queen 2 is my number 4.
One of the greatest. I think one of the greatest. I don't even want to call him a rock singer, just singer, period. Just one of the greatest singers that ever lived.
The best frontman of all time, right?
Oh shit, yeah. Yeah, the guy was dynamic, yeah. All right, Martin, what's your number 4?
Okay, I went with News of the World. So this is one with the devil on the shoulder saying, come on, you really like this album a lot. You're not supposed to, but I think Get Down, Make Love is a totally cool song because it breaks into that heavy chorus. I really like Fight from the Inside, and I kind of ignored that as a kid for years and years and years. Never really cared, right? And speaking of us as kids, so I would have been 14. We really didn't like this album very much because it was just so popular. And, we were like the underground metalheads, and it wasn't heavy enough. And we were just hearing We Are the Champions everywhere and We Will Rock You everywhere. But I definitely felt that it had to get on this list because when I stand back and I go, We Will Rock You is a pretty cool song. And even We Are the Champions is okay too. They're not abrasive. They're just like we've heard them too many times. But, and speaking of Brian May's Bag of Tricks, I think the 3 heaviest Queen songs of all time are Stone Cold Crazy, Modern Times, Rock and Roll, and Sheer Heart Attack from this album. But on this album, that's a new bag of tricks for him because that is so absolutely electrocuted over the top. Like he has this other gear of heavy guitar that is more blocky and violent, but this is just like sheer electricity gone wayward. I mean, that song is just unbelievable. And that crazy Roger Taylor fill near the end of it, right, with the sort of semi-false ending with the the ploipy toms in it. So yeah, love to death that one because it is one of the 3 heaviest songs of all time. And Hack, I totally agree, It's Late is probably in my top 5 or 6 Queen songs of all time. And I love All Dead. I don't like My Melancholy Blues or Sleeping on the Sidewalk. They're my 2 least favorites on here. And then probably We Are the Champions after that. But yeah, Who Needs You is pretty cool. But yeah, some good. Spread Your Wings is another super underrated, top 10 or 12 Queen song of all time. So pretty darn solid. So it made my number 4, but it's making it as one of the not nerdy choices that you're supposed to pick, sort of thing. Yeah. It's a little bit moving to the commercial era, and I'll never forget my feelings about it at the time, not really digging it in a huge way at 14 years old either.
Now, I remember reading that when that record came, that record came out when, the Sex Pistols and that whole British punk thing was going on. And I remember reading that they tried to sort of write, that's, because if you listen to Sheer Heart Attack, it's very punky. So that extra gear, it's almost a reaction to what was going on at the time. They were trying to show that, hey, we can do this too, even though we're, an artsy band, we can also, get down in the trenches. So yeah.
By some definitions, it's one of the heaviest recordings, production wise, playing wise. It's so everything's bleeding into each other on it. It's just a tour de force of heavy metal production.
Yeah.
Would you guys say, not to keep harping on Brian May, I mean, he deserves it, but I think some of the earliest examples of thrash and speed metal guitar, I think, were created by Mr. May.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple.
Mark, you mentioned a couple of songs earlier on that just Stone Cold Crazy and a couple others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my number 4 is, and this is probably most people's favorites, but my number 4 is A Night at the Opera. 1975. This starts with another fantastic opener, Death on Two Legs, man. Holy shit. What an amazing song. Great riff, the harm, they got the heaviness and then they got those lush harmonies right behind it. they, this is one of those records where they're dabbling in a lot of different things. They have the ragtimey, a dance hall type song on there, lazy on a Sunday afternoon, you know, uh, yeah, exactly. You know, uh, Roger Taylor, I'm in love with my car. It's an okay song, decent rocker. For me, there's a couple of Queen songs that I consider just absolute perfection, and one of them is on here, and I'm talking about "Someone to Love." Roger Deacon, he comes out with these songs. He doesn't, he's not as prolific as the other guys, but when he comes up with a song, it's always a winner, and that is just, it's a beautiful song, beautifully constructed. It's got that great kind of R&B kind of feel to it. I love that song. That's a song that I have not tired of. Brian May's got, he does, I mean, rock guy, but he also comes up with some nice sort of more melodic stuff. I love the song 39, for example. I hear a ton of Beatles on that, but that's another beautiful song. I think Sweet Lady is just a great example of a 70s rocker. Just a straight up cool 70s rock song. Getting back to Brian May again, when they're doing Seaside Rendezvous and he's making his guitar almost sound like a clarinet and he's doing these crazy effects behind it. That just kind of blows my mind. And one of Freddie's best ballads is on this record, right? Love of My Life. That's just an absolute stellar tune. And of course, this is the home of the masterpiece that we've talked about already, Bohemian Rhapsody. That's one of the songs. We talk a lot here about ear fatigue and hearing songs on the radio all the time and whatever, but that's one of the songs that no matter how many times you hear it, it always impresses. You know what I mean? It's just just the sheer scope of the song is just unbelievable. But yeah, Night at the Opera 75 is my number 4. Great record, man. Great album.
Nice.
Cool. All right. What do we got, Pete, for number 3?
Sheer Heart Attack. Again, another just drop dead classic. It's just amazing how this band right out of the gate just one after another after another after another. It's got the big hit Killer Queen on it. Brighton Rock is amazing. Talk about Brian May. There he is again. Flick of the Wrist, so good. Love Lily of the Valley. Now I'm Here is another great anthem for the band. Lap of the God, Stone Cold Crazy, so heavy. It's loads of fun. And again, chock full of all the little things that they do so well, right? Every song from one to the other gives you a different feel, a different flavor. And that's what I love about this band. Every album has so much variety on it. And there's like something for everybody on every record.
Yeah, amazing diversity for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
More on that later. All right, Martin, what's your number 3?
More on that now. Your Heart Attack. It's my number 3. Yeah, it's kind of sad and embarrassing in a way, but not really. Not particularly because it's Queen's own fault, but there are these certain bands, right? That the elephant in the room with Queen more than probably any band other than Def Leppard's another one I can think of where everybody, I know tons and tons and tons of people that say they didn't make any good albums after Pyromania kind of thing, right? And Queen is definitely one of these bands where there's this amazing early period and then quite a bit of disappointment later on. I don't know if any of you have any ones higher up your list, but I'm thinking probably not. But yeah, it is sort of a weird thing with Queen, unfortunately. And I've always said that this run of these albums that we're talking about here is literally one of the most genius in all of rock. And the only other band I can think of that comes close is Judas Priest. And I've always said that my whole life, like in terms of just objectively genius and like doing something really, really, not being subjective and saying, oh, I love Bruce Springsteen's catalog or Bob Dylan's classic albums. because that's to me is subjective. I'm talking objectively, right? But and so again, not to ramble on, but the Angel, the sober choice is this is another one of these where it's just a whole pile of genius. I love Tenement Funster with Roger Taylor. Flick of the Wrist is pretty cool, heavy Sabbathy one, but Brighton Rock. And Stone Cold Crazy, of course, is on here. So one of their other heaviest songs of all time. Now I'm Here is in that stadium rock heaviness zone.
Yeah.
I almost kind of put this in a isolated fight with Queen 2. To almost like pick which one is going to get in here. And then I just kind of pitted them against each other and realized, it's probably this one because they go together so much. But yeah, this is one of the choices where you just say objectively without bringing too much emotion into it. You just got to say it's a great album. So there you go.
Too bad it's in their top 5 for worst album cover though.
Yeah, that's a pretty weird one, eh?
Yeah.
But it's distinctive. People, and then they kind of just redo it cracked on the back, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think this is a record here. I don't think this has ever happened before. My number 3 is.
Wow.
Sure heart attack. What can you say? You guys have said it all. For me, this is a record where they kind of reined it in a little bit, right? Queen 1 and Queen 2, all kinds of experimentation. This is a little more straight up rock pop compared to the first 2 records. Brighton Rock, what an opener. Holy shit, man. And then it's got that Brian May signature solo that, he extends, in the live shows. Tenement Funster. I love that song. It's a great Roger tune. It kind of there's parts of it that actually remind me of I'm in Love with My Car if you listen to it closely. And there's another riff in there that sounds a lot like Fire and Water from Bad Company. Next time you listen to that, think of that.
Cool.
Because that was popping in into my head when I was listening to it. Flick of the Wrist. That was for me, that's like a precursor to Death on Two Legs. Now I'm Here. I mean, what can you say about that? That whole thing. When they opened the show and they had the lights on, Freddie, and then he'd be over there. Then he'd be over there. Great rocker. Lap of the Gods. Holy shit. That was. I think that was their first attempt at kind of doing like an anthemic kind of sing along, and that riff that Brian May is playing on that song, that big riff that comes in, is just absolutely Godzilla crushing the city. I mean, it's just, oh my god, it's prehistoric. It's just crazy good. And then Stone Cold Crazy, probably the first thrash song, maybe, or close to it, and then they had their ragtimey thing, with Bring Back Leroy Brown. Great record, man. Just straight up, after all the experimentation, they really toned it down and maybe a little more focused and direct, but great results, man. Great results. Sheer Heart Attack, number 3. 1974. They're only 3 albums in.
Yeah.
Damn.
Crazy.
Yeah, man. Crazy. All right. We're flying through these, man. Okay.
Yeah. All right. My number 2, this was my number 1 for many, many, many years. And it's probably since I did my album ranking on SOT 2 years ago, it's probably since it's changed and it's dropped down a notch. And a lot of people you talk to, it's their favorite or it's at the top. And it was for me for a long time, but still number 2 is pretty good. Night at the Opera, for all the reasons you guys already spoke about. I mean, sonically, it's an amazing sounding record. There's so much diversity on here. I'm not going to bother getting into all the great songs. I think we know what they all are, but man, Prophet's song, how heavy and just avant-garde at times that song sounds. I mean, you talk about like menacing, like, big doomy Sabbathy riffs. I mean, Brian can unleash them like it's nobody's business. I just love that song to death, but I love the mellow stuff on here. And I think this is one of those albums from them where some of the mellower tunes are just as good as the heavy songs.
Yeah.
And then you got a couple of the more commercial things. So yeah, I mean, Love of My Life, just amazing. Love Sweet Lady, Death on Two Legs is amazing. Yeah. And I love everybody loves the big huge hit Bohemian Rhapsody. That's one of those songs that if I hear once or twice a year, I'm good and I enjoy it. Any more than that, I'm like, all right, that's kind of enough. But I really enjoy You're My Best Friend. I think that's just a great pop tune from them. So well crafted. I mean, a great John Deacon song. So yeah, and again, it sounds great. This was the album I think where they finally realized all the kind of cool things they could do in the studio, and they took full advantage. So yeah, love it. It's great.
Cool. I would love Prophet's song a lot more if that extended vocal thing that he does in the middle.
Now I know. I know.
Shorter. Just make that
30 seconds. That's all we needed, right? Yeah. I
don't
get
need it that long. It's like, okay, I get it. Oh, he's doing it again. Oh, he's doing it again. That always annoyed me. It's like, this song is so cool. Get back to the guitar. I want to hear the guitar. Anyways, all right, Martin, what do we got?
Okay, so we did a long time ago, one of our earliest Contrarians episodes was on Queen, and I rated this my favorite Queen album of all time, but I've knocked it down to number 2 because I let the sober angel take over and slap me about a bit and tell me that you're wrong about this. It can't be your number 1. But jazz. Love jazz to death. Always have. I think Mustafa is amazing. Fat Bottom Girls, just the whole architecture of that, how it just slowly comes into being. And then there's the big, massive beat. Just a beautifully arranged, put together song in that sort of, AC/DC Thunderstruck sort of, or for those about to rock, just slow build and then just give you the parts when they damn well feel like it, sort of thing. I thought that was really cool. Bicycle Race is great with all the little switchbacks in it. I love how on this album you get kind of like the recurring theme of the bicycles and even little bits of recurring music later on as a device they use. If you can't beat them's fine. Let Me Entertain You. The heavy stuff on here. I was listening to this on my jog today, and what I love about this album is it's very eccentric production. It reminds me a little bit about of what ZZ Top did with Tejas. There's some really interesting drum sounds and that ploipy tabla-y tom-tom thing that he does. But what I like about this is the heavy stuff on here, which is all really kind of intricate and innovative, would be Let Me Entertain You, and more of that jazz, and Dead on Time would be the 3, right? The drums are all kind of like sent into the background a little bit. On some of them, you don't even hear much bass. It's like, it's all about Brian's guitar, but even that, it's almost like everybody is holding back at the same time. And yet this weird heaviness comes through, which is really cool. Fun It, I think, is a great sort of precursor to Another One Bites the Dust. It's like a disco tune, but it's totally entertaining because it's got all these funny little sounds in it all over the place. Don't Stop Me Now is just a huge, very energetic, inspirational pop song. I think it's probably the best one of those really poppy things. But but more than anything, it's Dead on Time. More of that jazz with that weird little dovetailing, odd little riff that they do. And Let Me Entertain You. The 3 heavy ones are just so smartly put together, and just like a weird production tour de force on those songs, and the whole album. I mean, Mustafa, same thing. It's got the heavy rockin' parts and the kind of minimalist thing. So it's just a really good, playful album. A lot of short songs, a lot of cool parts. Super entertaining. Going with jazz.
Cool. Yeah, so my number 2 is A Day at the Races.
Nice. Yeah.
What an opener Tie Your Mother Down is. Holy shit. That is like the perfect opener. That I play that song with one of my bands, and that is so much fun to play. What an amazing riff. Just a great song. Then right after that, you Take My Breath Away. So you go from, again, a diversity, right? You go into like a straight up rocker to like a really, really beautiful ballad. Right after that, Long Away, another nice melodic Brian May song, and Somebody to Love. There it is again. Roger Deacon pulls one out, and it's just fantastic. R&B flavored, the call and response, just beautiful song. Harmonies are great. I love White Man on this record.
Well,
That is a really cool tune, man. That is a really cool driving tune. Yeah, you know, uh, a little ragtime, with good old fashioned Lover Boy, and then there's another song that I dig a lot, Drowse. That to me sounds like very T Rex. It's a very T Rexy vibe to that kind of early '70s glam kind of feel to it. But it's a very cool song. Yeah, it's just there's just a lot of really good songs and a great variety, and just really shows off all their various styles. Which is Queen's signature on all their records. Yeah, Day at the Races is fantastic. 1976. Yeah, that's my number two.
Sweet.
All righty. We're down.
It really pained me not to include Day in the Races in this top 5 somewhere, because I really, really like that album a lot.
Yeah.
To me, it's like the little sibling to A Night at the Opera, because they're kind of structured very similarly, but that's not a bad thing. But yeah, great choice there.
Yeah.
All right, my number one is it's just one of those albums that I think I have grown to love more as time goes on. It was always great, but I just think that it's one of the great debuts of all time. And I always find it hilarious when you get into conversations with people about Queen who really aren't big fans and haven't really followed this band and maybe only know the hits, or maybe grew up in a time where Queen had some more pop flavored stuff throughout the 80s. And they're like, yeah, Queen, they're just this weird pop band. They're not really a rock band. And then you tell them, well, have you ever heard the early heavy stuff? And they're like, oh, Queen was never heavy. Well, if you haven't listened to the first Queen album, then you shouldn't be saying Queen were never heavy, because this is a damn heavy album. And if you've listened to this and you still don't think Queen are heavy, clean the wax out of your ears, people, because there is some of the heaviest stuff in the early 70s is on this album. I mean, Keep Yourself Alive, Liar, Modern Times Rock and Roll, Son and Daughter. I mean, just crushingly heavy rock and roll. Then you got the really cool, more melodic stuff like Doing All Right. You got the frantic Great King Rat, the enchanting My Fairy King. You got Seven Seas of Rye. I mean, this is just a genius album. One of the great. I mean, these guys just busted out of the gate, like totally sure of themselves, totally confident, big, huge riffs, this incredible front man with this wide ranging vocals, great rhythm section. Everybody wrote and sang pretty much, and just amazing stuff. This is one of the great debuts in rock and roll history right here.
Yeah, Liar is killer. That's a killer tune. I always love that song. Yeah, very cool. All right, what do we got for you, Martin? What's your number one?
Well, I'm going with The Miracle. No, just kidding. Queen one. I'm on record all over the place with more or less 3 favorite albums of all time, and that's Black Sabbath, Sabotage, Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti, and I've said this one many times as well. So I figured, the sober me has to pick it as the number one for that reason. And I really pegged it against jazz to get this right, and realize that there's 3 or 4 things on jazz that I'm a little down on. Oddly, we've been talking about these Queen ballads, and there's actually quite a few Queen ballads that I'm not a big fan of. Sometimes the melody can be a little too maudlin and kind of rub me the wrong way, but I really love Doing All Right, and I love The Night Comes Down. I mean, those two, there's just a lot going on, and something about the melodies. They're a little more, ethereal and proggy feeling. Back here, we're back at the beginning, but this doesn't sound like a 1973 album. Doesn't sound, I don't know what era you could peg it to, because it also has that timeless sort of Renaissance feel to it as well. But just the genius of all the parts in Keep Yourself Alive and Liar. And then of course, Modern Times Rock and Roll. It's just got this silly little title, and it's a short song, yet I've never really thought about it. I mean, maybe we have discussed this before, Pete, but that is one of the heaviest songs ever as of 1973.
Yeah.
By that time, when you take everything into it, including the production and the performance and the writing of it and that riff, super heavy song, Son and Daughter, Jesus, and then Seven Seas of Rye, which comes up later as well, right? But yeah, Great King Rat, My Fairy King. It's got a little bit of a feel of Queen 2 and a little bit of the demarcation of songs you get on Sheer Heart Attack. But yeah, as Pete says so eloquently, like straight out of the gates, they had all that free studio time to get their craft in this direction and have these personalities and everybody writing. Pretty incredible. I mean, I don't think you could have a better debut than this when you bring the objective part of it closer to the subjective, right? I mean, we know Montrose and Van Halen are great debuts and stuff, but when you talk about just like sheer genius Mensa metal and having a young band have this many ideas, this even beats Van Halen 1, right? So there you go. That's my number 1.
Cool. Well, my number 1 is, I think, more, well, it's the album that I introduced me to Queen. It's the album that I've listened to the most. And it's a little contrarian, but it wasn't everybody's top 5.
Yeah.
It's Jazz. Great, amazing diversity again on this album. It shows what they're capable of. The rockers, you got Fat Bottom Girls. If you can't beat them, Dead on Time, Don't Stop Me Now. I love and the last song, which I don't know if it was supposed to be a throwaway, more of that jazz, but I love that riff. That riff is killer. At the end there, you got the ballady stuff, Jealousy. That I love that song. That song is another one of my favorite Freddie songs. In Only 7 Days, another beautiful song. Leaving Home Ain't Easy. I mean, these are just beautiful friggin' songs. Some of their best piano kind of slow songs are on this record. Of course, there's the Ragtime, Dreamer's Ball, and Bicycle Race, man. That is just, it's like, it's everything. It's like the kitchen sink. I mean, and it just flows beautifully, and it's just a really, really well constructed, well done song. The only thing that bothers me about this record, and I've talked every other record I've mentioned, the opener on this, Mustafa. I'm not saying it's a bad song, but it should not have been the opener. Fat Bottom Girl should have been the opener on this record. That should have come down a little bit later on. Let's because that's what the opener is, right? It's got to grab your attention, you make you want to sit and listen to the rest of the record. Mustafa doesn't do that for me, at least not as an opener. It should have come a little bit later on. But apart from that, always loved this record. It's the one that's resonated with me, since I first heard it when I was like, I don't know, 11, 12 years old. So yeah, that's my number 1. There you go. So any honorable mentions, because a few of you are saying, oh, there's some other kind of squeeze in there in the bottom, kind of close. What about Peter?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's Day at the Races, News of the World, and probably Innuendo are my 3 that I would love that are just sitting beyond the top 5.
Yeah. But yourself?
For me, I would say it was Day at the Races and 2, and again, a sad commentary on what many, most fans. Well, Queen has so many fans. We can't say this about most fans, but most fans like us, it's a sad commentary that it drops off and they go into the wilderness, and we like a few songs on all of those albums moving forward, and it's just too bad that every single one of our 15 albums. I mean, we don't even get up to the game with any of our 15 albums, right? And I took this out and took a good look at it, and this would be my number 8. So absolutely, just as per our blueprint, the next one, and then the next one for me would be Hot Space. So it's really sad in my, I don't even have an innuendo in mind, right? It's just literally the next one and then the next one. And then I quite like a few of those other albums as well. But looking at the game, I mean, I love Play the Game. I Dragon Attack, even though it's heavy, I don't like it very much, and I don't like anything on the whole rest of the other side. At that side, Rocket Prime Jive is okay. I don't like Don't Try Suicide. I love Sail Away, Sweet Sister, and I love Save Me. And I can't remember what Coming Soon sounds like. But so really, this is an album where I'm liking really only about half of it. And oddly, Hot Space I like about half of it. So it's not, this ain't too far off a Hot Space for me. For next. But yeah, it's just kind of too bad. It's just all these old albums. But what a run. What an incredible run.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a soft spot, and no one's mentioned this record. Kind of Magic.
Oh, yeah.
I got
some great songs on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at it here. One Vision, 1 Year Love, another. Okay, it sounds kind of dated, the cheesy keyboards, whatever, but not a bad song. Friends Will Be Friends, I thought it was kind of cool. Who Wants to Live Forever? Give Me the Prize. It was a great rocker. I remember I took this album out from the library. No one knew what the hell it sounded like. And it's always had a little bit of a soft spot for me. But is it fair to say, because we talked about the diversity of Queen, is it fair to say that by the definitely the mid '80s, they sort of really narrowed that down? There's no more ragtimey stuff. That kind of went away, right? They were more kind of, I mean, they still played the odd heavy. There was always a couple of heavy songs, even on the,
Brian had to get a couple, like 1 or 2 songs on every album at least, right?
Yeah, yeah. And they were great. All this heavy stuff. I Want It All and Headlong. But then they kind of, sort of went more, well, they went from the dance, and then they kind of went into sort of the more of a pop ballady thing. And
yeah,
I mean, but I don't know. That was the music of the day, right? That's what was getting on the radio,
Yeah.
But you listen to that stuff now, and it, because of the cheesy keyboards they were using, those synth sounds.
Yeah,
that stuff does not age well, unfortunately.
And ridiculously for me, even more, the next one that I like the most would be The Works. So it's just like down, 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 and then innuendo, granted, is going to be my favorite of the other ones that are left, kind of thing. But yeah.
So I'm going to ask you guys this, because we did this before. I did a show like this before with Pete. If you were to, because we were talking about Queen fans, they don't, Queen, saying Queen was never heavy, whatever. If you were to pick one Queen record as an introduction to somebody who'd never listened to Queen before, what album would you pick? I'll start with Pete.
They've never heard anything before.
Never heard Queen. I was curious about the band. What should I listen to first? What would be my introduction?
Night at the Opera.
I'd probably go News of the World. If you wanted to turn them on to Queen, because I think it just might not scare them away as much. It's pretty well done. It's nice recording. The songs are pretty immediate. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I think maybe the early stuff might scare them away a little, and the later stuff would certainly scare away a lot of people that I know.
I mean, I think News of the World and Night at the Opera have a couple of their biggest songs ever, right? Because you got News of the World, you have We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions, and the other one's got Bohemian Rhapsody and You're My Best Friend. So on both albums, you get like a couple hits, some heavy stuff, some more of all the other things. So yeah, I agree. I think the first album, or definitely the second album, would probably scare someone off if they're not into that kind of heavier material.
I throw a Day at the Races in there too.
Yeah.
You got Somebody to Love on that. You got the rockers. You got Tie Your Mother Down, like I mentioned earlier. Ballady stuff, Take My Breath Away. There's that's what I would I'd probably go with. Cool. So. Wow, we got 36 people watching. Let us know what your favorite albums are of Queen, and pop them in the comments. And so let's just go around. Pete, what's new and upcoming on Sea of Tranquility?
Let's see. So Martin and I Friday morning we're going to do part 2 of a theme we started last week. So we did this whole like X is Y band or Y is X band on steroids type of thing. So basically looking at bands who came after a very notable band and kind of took a similar formula, but kind of like injected some steroids in it and went to more extreme, avenues with it. So what we're going to kind of change that a little bit for this week. And we're going to look at bands whose newer material or more recent material is kind of like their old material, but on steroids. So bands who are putting out really cool material all these years later, but it's even more amped up than their original classic stuff is. So that's Friday. And then we've got with Simon Bray and Stephen Reed, who are part of the UK Connection. We've got a Saturday show we do every week. We're going to be talking about our favorite and least favorite Styx albums. So that's coming up on Saturday. And then we're going to be talking some doom metal on Monday on the Hudson Valley Squares on Monday. So that's kind of some of the stuff happening.
Cool. Martin, what do you got going on? Any books?
Well, yeah, the latest one in is the Yes, a Visual Biography 2. So you can get that at martinpopoff.com. And there's PayPal buttons, of course, to be able to do that. And I sign them and send them out from the office. My Queen one is still in print. So this album by album Queen is still in print. Yesterday, I had my audio podcast, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff episode drop, which was on albums with not much bass on them. So I just called it No Bottom End. And this morning we did a really good Contrarians episode on Pink Floyd, The Final Cut, with my buddy Ralph Chapman, who did a really good job on the Peter Gabriel 2 one. So that one will be up in a week or something like that. But yeah, and the Contrarians panel on In Through the Outdoor, Marco put that up yesterday as well.
Cool. I just want to answer a question from Louis. He's asking about the Guitarist Corner. So I know what's going on with that.
Yeah, Louis, we've had lots of scheduling conflicts over the last couple of weeks. Yeah. So we didn't want to we were going to do the episode tonight of the Guitarist Corner featuring some of our favorite wah-wah guitar moments. But, we're nearing summertime. People got a lot of stuff going on. So we didn't want to just do the show with 2 or 3 people. So we're moving it to next Wednesday, which is June 1st, I believe. Yes. So look for the show next week. We're doing it regardless of who can show up. So look for the next episode of the Guitarist Corner on SOT a week from tonight.
Yeah, next Wednesday. So, yeah, folks. So I just I like to get a lot of new people here, people watching the show, new to the channel. Please consider subscribing. I've got like over 70% of people watch my content that aren't subscribed. Just consider subscribing. That'd be much appreciated. Another way to support the channel is I have links below. There's Guitar Hack merch. There's hats, there's hoodies, there's mugs, there's all that good stuff. There's a PayPal down there as well. That would be much appreciated. If you don't follow me on my Facebook Guitar Hack group, that's down there as well. There's my Instagram is down there. Just a lot of musicians, a lot of guitar players, a lot of music lovers, a lot of good content on those on that Facebook page. So go and check that out. So again, I would like to thank Pete and Martin. These are always a lot of fun. Love having these guys on once a month. I may be doing a live show on Friday. I'm not going to promise you anything, but depending on how things go, there might be a live show Friday night. If I do it, it'll be at 10 p.m. All right. So I want to thank Pete and Martin, and I want to thank everybody for hanging out and checking out the show. And yeah, we will see you all next month. Take care, everybody. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.